History is often written by the victors, but it is frequently steered by the deceivers. How did single individuals, armed only with words and a false sense of authority, lead entire nations into the abyss? No armies, no thrones, just a voice, a lie, and a people desperate enough to believe it. The Master Manipulators. Today, we uncover the ancient blueprints of the Master Manipulators, the men and women who rewrote the fates of civilizations, and how their playbook is older than you think. The framework. What makes a Master Manipulator? Before we meet them, we need to understand what separates a manipulator from a mere liar. Anyone can lie, but a Master Manipulator does something far more dangerous. They make you want to believe the lie. They don't force you. They don't threaten you. They position themselves as the answer to a problem you already feel. Historians and psychologists have identified a pattern, what we might call the 3 pillars of ancient manipulation. Number 1, the vacuum. Every great manipulator rises in a moment of crisis, confusion, or absence of leadership. They don't create the chaos. They find it, and they fill it. Number 2, the symbol. They always attach themselves to something people already trust. A god, a tradition, a prophecy. They don't build authority from scratch. They borrow it. Number 3, the offer. They give the people something they desperately want: certainty, identity, power, or comfort. And in exchange, they take everything. Sound familiar? It should, because we covered this exact pattern in our video on Al-Samiri, the man who forged a golden calf and convinced an entire nation that their god had walked away. If you haven't watched that video, the link is right here, because today we're going to show you that Samiri was not unique. He was part of a long, ancient tradition. He was a master manipulator, and he was far from the last. Case study 1. Ahab and the prophets of Baal. Our first case takes us to the northern kingdom of Israel, around the 9th century BCE. King Ahab was not the manipulator. He was the manipulated. The real architect of deception was his wife, Jezebel, daughter of the king of Sidon. When Jezebel arrived in Israel, she brought with her 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. She didn't invade the kingdom militarily. She infected it spiritually. Her manipulation was methodical. Step 1. Eliminate the competition. She hunted down and killed the prophets of the God of Israel, silencing the voices of opposition. Step 2. Flood the space. With 850 royal-sponsored prophets, she didn't argue with the old religion. She drowned it out. Volume replaced truth. Step 3. Economic capture. The prophets of Baal ate at the king's table. To challenge them was to challenge the throne itself. This is the Samiri echo. Samiri callback. Remember how Samurai didn't simply invent a lie? He constructed an environment in which the truth felt absent. Jezebel did the same. She didn't need the people to love Baal. She only needed them to stop being certain about anything else. And it worked. For years, the people of Israel wavered. The historical account says they limped between 2 opinions. That limp, that moral and spiritual paralysis, was exactly what Jezebel manufactured. The lesson? The most effective manipulation doesn't convince you of a new truth. It destroys your confidence in the old one. Case study 2. Theramenes and the 30 Tyrants. Athens, 404 BCE. The city has just surrendered to Sparta after 27 brutal years of war. The democracy that had defined Athens, the birthplace of Western political philosophy, was crumbling. And into that vacuum stepped a man named Critias, backed by a council that history would call the 30 Tyrants. But Critias did not act alone. He needed someone more subtle, someone who could wear the mask of moderation while enabling extreme cruelty. That man was Theramenes. Theramenes was the consummate political manipulator. His contemporaries gave him a nickname, Kothornos, the theatrical boot that could fit either foot. He was a man of no fixed convictions, only strategic positions. Here's what made Theramenes extraordinary. He had previously helped overthrow democracy in 411 BCE, then pretended to restore it. He helped negotiate the surrender to Sparta, then positioned himself as a moderate among extremists. When the 30 tyrants began executing Athenians without trial, Theramenes publicly expressed concern, not to stop the killings, but to manage his own reputation. His manipulation was not in what he said, but in what he made people believe about him. His image was his weapon. But here's the critical lesson history delivers. Manipulators eventually consume each other. Critias, threatened by Theramenes' growing moderating influence, had him arrested on the floor of the Senate and forced him to drink hemlock. Theramenes, ever the performer, reportedly drank the cup and threw the last drops, in the manner of a Greek drinking game, and toasted it to the health of the handsome Critias. Even at his execution, he was performing Case Study 3, Manejo and the Rewriting of History. Not all manipulation is performed in real time. Some of the most powerful manipulation is done retroactively, through the rewriting of history itself. Meet Manetho, an Egyptian priest of the 3rd century BCE who wrote the first systematic history of Egypt under the Ptolemaic rulers. His work, called Egyptiaca, shaped how the entire ancient world understood Egyptian history. Many of our modern dynasties and pharaonic timelines are still based on his framework. But here is where it gets fascinating and disturbing. Manetho wrote under Ptolemy I, a Greek ruler trying to legitimize foreign control over Egypt. Manetho's history, conveniently, made the Ptolemies look like the natural inheritors of a long, divinely ordered tradition. He had access to temple archives no one else could read. He was the sole interpreter of an entire civilization's records. This is narrative monopoly, arguably the most powerful form of manipulation. When you control the story of the past, you control the meaning of the present. And this brings us directly back to Al-Samiri. Because what did Al-Samiri do at his core? He didn't just make an idol, he offered an alternative narrative. He said, "This is your God. This is what happened. Moses is gone. The covenant is rewritten." Every master manipulator across every culture and century has done the same thing, seized the story. Case Study 4. Simon Magus, the first fake prophet of the Common Era. In the 1st century CE, in the region of Samaria, interestingly, the same region linked to the Al-Samiri tradition, a figure emerged who would become legendary across 3 major world religions. His name was Simon Magus, Simon the Magician. Ancient sources describe him as a sorcerer who had so mesmerized the people of Samaria with his illusions and performances that they called him the great power of God. Think about that phrase. He didn't claim to be God. He claimed to be the power of God, a subtle but crucial distinction. It gave him divine authority without divine accountability. This is the Al-Samiri template perfected. Al-Samiri didn't say he was God either. He said the calf was the people's God. The manipulator always makes himself the intermediary, never the destination. That way, when the lie collapses, the idol takes the blame. Simon Magus reportedly attempted to purchase spiritual authority with money, an act so infamous it gave us the English word simony, the buying or selling of religious offices. He understood intuitively what all master manipulators understand. In the absence of genuine spiritual authority, people will accept purchased authority, as long as the performance is convincing enough. His legacy stretched for centuries. Early Christian, Jewish, and Gnostic texts all grappled with Simon as a symbol, the archetype of the fraudulent holy man, the wolf in shepherd's clothing. The common thread, the anatomy of deception. Jezebel, Theramenes, Manetho, Simon Magus, Al-Samiri. Separated by centuries, cultures, and continents, but built from the same blueprint. Let's lay it bare. 1. They all rose in a vacuum: crisis, exile, defeat, foreign occupation, religious confusion. The manipulator does not create the wound. They pour themselves into it. 2. They all claimed borrowed authority. A king's table, a priestly archive, divine power. None of them said, "Trust me because I am great." They said, "Trust me because something greater speaks through me." 3. They all gave people what they wanted to hear, not what they needed, not what was true, what felt comforting, familiar, or empowering in a moment of deep fear. 4. They all suppress the alternative, kill the prophets, outspend the opposition, monopolize the archive, discredit the messenger. And 5. The most important lesson. They all eventually collapsed. Not always in their own lifetimes. Sometimes the damage outlasted them for centuries. But the deception always, eventually, unraveled. Because deception, by its very nature, cannot sustain itself indefinitely. It requires constant maintenance, escalating lies, and the willing blindness of its audience. And people eventually tire of willingly going blind. The closing. Why this matters now. You might be wondering, why does any of this matter? These people are dead. These civilizations are dust. It matters because the blueprint has never been retired. The vacuum still exists in every generation that faces uncertainty. The borrowed authority still works in every era where people outsource their discernment. The comfortable lie still sells in every culture that prioritizes feeling secure over being correct. The ancient world did not invent human psychology. It only gave us the first recorded examples of what happens when that psychology is weaponized. The story of Al-Samiri, which we explored in our earlier video, was not just a theological warning. It was a historical pattern made sacred precisely because it repeats. The Quran did not just record what happened in the Sinai, it preserved a template so that those with eyes to see could recognize it the next time it appeared. History's greatest manipulators left one unintended gift: their stories. Read them, study them, learn the blueprint, not to use it, but to see it. If this video made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't seen our deep dive on Al-Samiri, the man who manipulated an entire nation with a handful of fire and a golden lie, that video is linked right here. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and never stop questioning who is filling the vacuum.